And people are concerned, doubly so, because the money went to a small law firm that happens to employ someone who's been a longtime associate and friend of Stacey Abrams and who worked for her campaign or worked for one of her organizations.
Yes, it's both. She was the campaign chair in 2018 and is the campaign chair for this campaign, which is usually an unpaid position that does a lot to do with fundraising, not so much the day-to-day of campaign operations.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a lot. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you this content. Now, y'all know that we have done numerous stories, numerous videos on Stacey Abrams, and we're bringing you another one because your boy Elon Musk has called her out in an interview that he did recently with Ted Cruz. So you're about to see that, but you probably noticed from the coming up, from the clip that I played just a couple of seconds ago, that's not Elon Musk. Who is that? Well, what I found, y'all, is that this Stacey Abrams rabbit hole is deep, y'all. It's deep. After we get through the Elon Musk material, I am going to loop in an interview from a couple of years ago. So it's an investigative report by Politico where they found that Stacey Abrams had paid her friend's law firm some crazy amount, almost $10 million for just half of a case that should only cost several $100,000. She had paid her friend's law firm over $10 million. You put that together with the $2 billion that Joe Biden gave her linked organizations. You put that together with the $300,000 fine that the Stacey Abrams linked organization, the biggest campaign finance fine ever in the state of Georgia's history, and you just have a certain kind of picture that's being painted. You know what I mean? So first we're gonna get into this Elon Musk clip, and then a little bit later we'll go into the Politico report. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Is it incompetence that you're finding, or is this like the biggest money laundering scheme in the history of the world that you're finding?
Look, I think it's mostly, if you say, look, what's the waste to fraud ratio?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like 80% waste, 20% fraud. But you do have these sort of gray areas.
Yeah.
So,
Example
would be, so we saw a lot of payments going out of Treasury that had no payment code and no explanation for the payment. And then we'd try to figure out what that payment is, and we'd see that, okay, that contract was supposed to be shut off, but someone forgot to shut off that contract, and so the company kept getting money.
Wow.
Now, is that waste or fraud?
Yeah, both.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, both.
It's sort of
if you know you're getting something that you're not supposed to get.
You're not supposed to get it, but the government sent it to you, and nobody from the government asked for it back. Or take, for example, the $1.9 billion given to Stacey Abrams, a fake NGO.
Utter insanity.
Explain that. Forget it. Don't know the story.
That's corrupt. That's just corrupt, I think. That's paying off cronies at that point.
1,000%.
Yeah. And by the way, she knew. Like when you get $2 billion, you don't miss that. That's not.
It's not an accident.
That's not.
Allegedly, it was for environmentally friendly appliances or something, and they've given like 100 appliances so far for $2 billion. It's a very expensive toaster oven.
They're really nice.
One hell of an appliance.
That Sub-Zero fridge, boy, it's nice.
So I think most people had the same feeling when they heard about this $2 billion. I mean, I think that's why the story was so big. This is some of our biggest videos, definitely recently. Some of our biggest videos ever were about this Stacey Abrams thing. And I think it's just people like this. Something just doesn't feel right about $2 billion going to the, like, this is $2 billion. You know, we can do with $2 billion. And the fact that, that there hadn't been any kind of public disclosure, like this wasn't something that the average person on the street would have known about. It just didn't feel right. Now, I'm certainly not claiming anybody did anything wrong, but as you will see in this upcoming clip, Musk calls this a type of like a scam, a type of scam that he's noticing. In his opinion, it's a scam, and he's saying not only was Abrams involved in this kind of scam, but other people were as well. Let's take a look.
Right. This is obviously one of the biggest scam fraud holes we've uncovered, which is really crazy. Is that the government can give money to a so-called nonprofit with very few controls, and then there's no auditing subsequently of that nonprofit. So there's no. So this is where, with the 1.9 billion to Stacey Abrams, they then give themselves extremely lavish, like insane salaries, expense everything to the nonprofit. Buy jets and homes and all sorts of things.
Live like kings and queens.
Yes.
On the taxpayer dime.
Correct.
You mentioned...
And this is happening at scale. It's not just one or two. We're seeing this everywhere.
Now, y'all, Musk and his Doge people have been all up and through the government files, and they've been taking a look at everything. So I guess we just have to take his word for it that he's been seeing a lot of this. Now, what I'm going to do now is shoot into a previous news report by Politico, y'all. I was shocked at this because I feel that the people who are doing this reporting are people who you would expect to be on the side of Stacey Abrams, and they seem to be sketched out by it. Like, they seem to be like, what's going on here? So I'm not going to do a whole lot of run up. This is kind of, it's kind of an extended report. I did cut it down. I edited it down. So it's going to be a little bit of an attention span tester, but stick with it, y'all. Come on. Here we go. Let's get into it.
Verified Action, the voting rights organization founded by Stacey Abrams, spent $9.4 million between 2019 and 2020 on legal fees for a boutique law firm where Allegra Lawrence Hardy, Abrams' gubernatorial campaign chairwoman, is one of two named partners. That's according to new reporting by Politico's Brittany Gibson.
So joining us now to discuss is politics reporter at Politico, Brittany Gibson. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. So tell us more about the story. What precisely is going on and is the issue?
Yeah, so essentially we can see half the story on Verified's side right now. As you said, we have the tax forms for the nonprofit organization for 2019 and 2020, which show that they spent about $25 million on legal fees. And in interviews with the attorneys for the case, as well as people that work at Verified, they said that most of that money was spent on this litigation. They don't have to provide an actual breakdown. I did ask for it, but they have not released that information. So it's about $25 million for the first 2 years of this litigation. And this is the case that Stacey Abrams filed at the end of 2018, at the end of her last gubernatorial run. And it went to court this year. So there's an assumption as well that the legal fees will increase at least probably about the same amount of money as the first 2 years in these most recent 2 years, 2021 and 2022, when the case went to trial. On the state side, they spent $6 million defending this case, and the case got its verdict about a little less than a month ago, and Verified Action lost on the 3 remaining claims that made it to trial this year.
So at the end of the day, the accusation is that she spent an outsized amount of money, not just as compared to what the defense spent, but also I saw in your article, other kind of public interest attorneys have pointed to the fact that they would expect a litigation of this sort to be much less expensive. The claims, in fact, were not meritorious in the court of law, so to the extent that they drew attention to these voting rights concerns, it's not clear at this point whether it's positive attention. And people are concerned, doubly so, because the money went to a small law firm that happens to employ someone who's been a longtime associate and friend of Stacey Abrams and who worked for her campaign or worked for one of her organizations.
Yes, it's both. She was the campaign chair in 2018 and is the campaign chair for this campaign, which is usually an unpaid position that does a lot to do with fundraising, not so much the day-to-day of campaign operations. Yes, and that's exactly right. So the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund did a study up through cases in 2021 that looks at the fees that plaintiffs as well as states in defending these cases have paid in past cases similar to the one that Verified Action filed. And they found the most expensive case was $8.8 million in legal fees. That was a case down in Texas. And typically, they said it's a couple $100,000 over a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So the $25 million for just half of this case already makes it the most expensive. And I should add, it's not just Lawrence and Bundy, the law firm of the campaign chair. They had, I believe it was 8 law firms involved in this case. But Lawrence and Bundy, they were the lead counsel.
Yeah, so the implication here then is that this is something maybe not as egregious, but along the lines of, right, the Black Lives Matter fundraising not being put to any good use and kind of just, being used for kickbacks or personal enrichment, maybe, again, not on the level of buying properties, which is what happened with the Black Lives Matter organization. But this looks kind of fishy based on your reporting. It's hard to come away with another conclusion.
Yeah, I remain open-minded that there could be a perfectly logical or innocent explanation for why this case was so expensive, why they chose this attorney as opposed to, any other. I've asked, and maybe there will be a public answer. Maybe there will be some more explanation given on Fair Fight's side. I think what is important to think about here is what Kathleen Clark, she's a legal and ethics professor, said in the story. She said, there could be an explanation, but there's a fiduciary responsibility to make the best choices. Abrams was chair of this organization up until 2021 when she announced her second run for governor. And so in that role as chair of this nonprofit, chair of the board for this nonprofit, did she make the best decisions in spending the money that she raised? And Fair Fight Action during this time, this is just the 501c4, the nonprofit group, not even the Fair Fight Action PAC, which is called Fair Fight Inc. They raised $61 million, which is more than any other nationally known group in Georgia. And I found out through interviews with the now former organizing director at the group, she left earlier this year, that Fair Fight Action did not do any direct voter contact in the 2020 election cycle. They were, not alone in that during the pandemic. A lot of groups that normally do direct voter work didn't. I was able to verify that information talking to other voting groups in Georgia. So their main, the meat and potatoes of what this organization did, their main priority was this litigation. And that is where they spent, it looks like based on the 990 forms, the majority of their money.
Sounds like we should get Stacey Abrams on another magazine cover.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to ask you about this, Brittany. I don't want you to attest to this, but I have observed in interviews with on-the-ground grassroots organizers in Georgia, I detect a sliver of resentment, I gotta say, when I hear them talking about how underpaid and undersupported on-the-ground staffers are, as we as a nation witness the enormous fundraising gains and attention that has been paid to Stacey Abrams in particular as a kind of hero of voting rights and electoral victory in a state, despite her own failures to win in any of her own races. And I appreciate you for bringing this story to us today, because we're definitely going to have to continue following this and see if what looks like the worst case scenario is in fact the worst case scenario. There's a real injustice to people who are really working hard on the ground. Thank you again for joining us, Brittany.
Yeah, great reporting. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So y'all, what's going on here? Are we tripping? There have been, one thing when there's one story out there, when there's two stories, but now we have three. Seems like there might be more about all this same kind of stuff, like mismanagement of money and somebody who's getting billions of dollars put into their hands. You know what I mean? Well, we know it's not just Stacey, that it was a conglomeration of organizations, but she's involved, right? So I want to hear what y'all have to say. Who was able to sit through the whole thing? Let me know in the comments. You are an attention span all-star if you sat through the whole thing. And in fact, I'm going to link to another video here shortly so you can just keep watching. This video is going to be from the other channel, so you can keep supporting us. We need to get our views up on the PIW Reacts channel. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank y'all. Please do hit the share button. Share this video out with somebody else. If you're not a subscriber on this channel, please do subscribe. Love y'all. And now click on that next video so you can keep watching on the PIW Reacts channel. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And we catch you back in the next one.